Welcome to the 10th edition of the Toronto Black Film Festival, founded by the Fabienne Collab Foundation and co-presented by TD in collaboration with Global News, available online February 16th to 21st, 2022. Be sure to get your all-access pass on torontoblackfilm.com. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Lisa Michelle Cornelius, and I'm an ACTRA Toronto member. I'm also an ACTRA Toronto counselor, and most recently an elected Toronto VP. I am also on set a lot of times, so this conversation is really near and dear to my heart, as it is for all of our panelists, who you will be introduced to shortly. But before we begin, we'd like to start with a land acknowledgement to acknowledge the land that we're on. Out of deep respect, we acknowledge and recognize that the land now known as Toronto is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Today's panel will be discussing the hair and makeup equity in the film and television industry. I'm thrilled about the guest panel we have lined up for you today. We'll be discussing the systemic barriers that Black performers in particular often face in the hair and makeup chair and how the industry plans to overcome these barriers. We'll also discuss how key cast and crew can safely advocate for themselves and on behalf of their colleagues when being confronted with inequitable treatment. So we have the pleasure of speaking with a wide range of film and TV industry professionals, and I'm excited to bring out our very first guest. Everybody's out, but I'm going to introduce y'all one at a time because we have such a large and fulsome panel. So this actor and filmmaker behind the film Defund, a film with a razor-sharp script where twins try to navigate their own and each other's complex responses to both the lockdown and the fight for racial justice during the long, hot summer of 2020, which we all know too well, which premiered at TIFF in 2021 and is playing at this year's Toronto Black Film Festival. Welcome, Khadija Roberts Abdullah.
Hi, Lisa Michelle. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so excited to be speaking with you. I love that you're totally repping, considering this is a hair and makeup panel. You look fabulous. Thank you for showing up.
Nice reel.
I love it. So I'm always about, positivity. So I want to acknowledge that we have had great hair and makeup experiences on set with a wide variety of stylists and professionals. But I'm looking to start off with you just sharing some challenges where it did not go so well. To give you an example, I can remember a time where I was having a great time in the makeup chair on set or before set. And when she was finished, looking in the mirror and thinking, oh, wow, I thought she clearly hates me. Like, I thought we were having a good time, but this is not. And it can really deflate the situation, right? Like, you're on set, you're excited to work. We're all excited to be in the position that we're in. So not looking our best and appearances mean so much to us as performers. It's not a small thing. It's not trivial. So when it goes left, it needs to be corrected and it needs to be fair for everyone. So if you want to share some examples of where, basically as to why we're having this conversation, I'd love to hear some anecdotes from you.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's something that I know all too well. It's an experience that I've had to come face to face with, especially in the earlier days of my career in this industry. I know so many Black actors who have been on set and dread going into processing because they never know what they're going to be faced with as far as who's going to be processing them. I have several memories of being in a makeup chair or being in processing and having someone playing in my head who doesn't really know what they're doing. I have experiences of hairdressers attempting to braid my hair in like particular, there's like the overhand and then there's the underhand, and there's just a really specific way to neatly braid hair of my texture, which is a 4C kinky curly, that it requires a bit of familiarity that a lot of the hairdressers that I've come face to face with just don't possess. I can think of, I feel like most Black people have their own experiences with shrinkage. I have gone through my own preparation before showing up on set to wash, blow dry my hair, stretch it out to a presentable state, and then show up on set the next day to have an knowing hairdresser put a bunch of liquid product in my hair that just undoes all of the preparation that I did, knowing that it was necessary to go on to set with, anticipating a process that wouldn't necessarily be catered to me and my hair type.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said something that really stuck out to me, that I don't think a lot of people realize. And I think it really frames this conversation in that a lot of us, and us being Black performers, dread the moment of hair and makeup. And I think that's incredibly sad, especially when I learned that a lot, if not most, of my white counterparts are always very excited to go into the hair and makeup chair. It's like, in addition to having a job, they're excited about, wow, I get, today's a chance, I get a free hairdo, a free professional makeup job, where we often have the opposite experience, where it's like you're excited about the job and you get there and you're like, oh, this part. Have you found that you have had communication beforehand with the hair and makeup artists, and has that improved your situation on set when you had a chance to converse with them before the moment, or has it made any difference at all?
It's rare. It was far less common, again, in the early days of my career. More and more lately, more jobs that I take are inclined to create a conversation, create a dialogue between the hair and makeup department and myself as a performer before I show up on set. And it's one of those things that I think, as far as the hierarchy on a film set goes, that will influence it as well. The lower you are on the call sheet, the less likely people are to want to make allowances or make allowances for your needs. I think in the last couple jobs that I had, I was a bit closer to the top of the call sheet. So I think there was an emphasis put on making sure that my needs were met. But I think that we need to have a bit more fluidity with how that consideration is approached. Yes. I shouldn't have to be top 10 on the call sheet for my hair and makeup needs to be taken into consideration.
I agree. I agree. If you're number 1 or 55 or 300 on the call sheet, you should be able to show up to work and feel equal to your counterparts. That's the bare minimum, I would like to think. Last question before I introduce our other fabulous panelists. What are the costs associated with having to deal with hair and makeup? Have you ever spent your own money outside of the set, like your own money, to prepare your hair and makeup or bring your own equipment? Has that been an experience for you?
Constantly. I got burned on my first job. Of course, I showed up on set for a feature and went back to my trailer and kind of sobbed into the very sad makeup look that had been done on my face. And after that experience, I started showing up to set with a little makeup bag with me, with hair products with me, my own silk scarf to tie my hair down after I go through processing. And, those are all things that I purchased myself and brought to set with me because I anticipated that they wouldn't be there for me. And, I do want to say that less and less, again, those occurrences are becoming, farther and fewer between. The last couple sets that I showed up on, I felt very, very taken care of, very, very seen.
I love that. I love that. And I do like that it, in my experience as well, I would say I feel like it has been better over the course of the years that I've been an actor. It is getting better. We still have some work to do. Okay, so before we move on, just to summarize for actors who might be watching this, I would encourage you to get your agents to advocate for you. How I have found, because I was spending a lot of money, a large reason I wear my hair in braids is, yes, I love them, but I also know that they're hard to mess up. You show up to set and no matter how hard you try, you can't make me look terrible if they're braids. And you know what I mean? I joke about it, but it's true. I've had to change my everyday looks to make sure that I'm not, to make sure that I'm taken care of on set. But that being said, I've learned to use my agent to then ask for the money it costs me to get a fresh set of braids before I get on set. And she's been successful every time. I have to say she's never met resistance in asking for the money it costs me to take care of myself. So actors, please feel empowered to use your agents. And we also know for a fact that it's challenging to report any of this. So a lot of it goes unnoticed to producers and other industry bodies, because it's really hard for us as individuals to self-report, because you can't really do it anonymously. If I'm one of the only Black people on set and a report goes in about the hair, you know it's me. So a lot of performers are less inclined to complain to the authorities, which is why it's that much more important for all the unions and the organizations to take care of it at that level. So with that, I'd love to invite our friends from IATSE, NABET, and Textured Hair EDU, who will be able to speak further to us about what is being done at the organizational level to make progress on this important issue. So I'm going to read their illustrious bios. We have Angela Mastronardi, and she is the president of IATSE Local 873. Angela began her career as a script supervisor in BC with IATSE 891. And since returning to Toronto and joining IATSE 873, has been actively involved in organizing and governance. She has also been instrumental in bringing much needed awareness to equity, training, and health and safety initiatives during her tenure. If you want to give a little wave, Angela, so people can see who you are, thank you. And moving on to Peggy Kiria-Kadu. She is the president of NABET 700M Unifor and has been actively working in the film and television industry for over 30 years, specializing in hair. As president, Peggy is responsible for the overall operations of NABET 700M Unifor, including the negotiation, application, and interpretation of the collective bargaining agreement. If you want to give a little wave, Peggy, so people know who you are, thank you for being here. And last but not least, we have TK Prentice Cupid. She's a hairstylist based in Toronto who specializes in balayage and textured hair services for predominantly coily textures. She is the founder of Textured Hair EDU, which is an online platform created to provide a curriculum specifically focused on textured hair based on her own frustrations around the lack of adequate textured hair education. Thank you, all three of you, Peggy, Angela, and TK, for being here. So we have a bunch of questions, but I will start with Peggy and Angela representing IATSE and NABET. Can each of you describe what the process is for hair and makeup stylists to join both of your respective unions? We can start with Angela. What is the process? What sort of training or vetting or certifications do they require?
Hi, thank you, Lisa Michelle. So I think with any hairdresser in Ontario, you have to have a license through the, I think it's called the Ontario College of Trades. And so that is one of the requirements that you would need to be put on our permit list as a new person to the 873. A makeup artist usually goes through some formal training as well. I know that there's a school in Toronto, CMU, which a lot of our makeup artists come out of. And then we just ask people to get any work that you can get offered as a hairstylist or a makeup artist in the industry, commercials, short films, Mandy.com, which is one of the online venues for people to find jobs within the industry.
I remember that site. It's been a while.
And, I mean, to me, it's anything you can do. The Canadian Film Centre is always a go-to as well, because they're always looking for people to help out there. And you get your days in, and as a permit, you get days as we need people outside of membership. And I'll tell you, the industry has increased significantly over the last few years. Obviously, 2020 was an unprecedented year where we were shut down for quite a while, but we came back with like gangbusters. It was starting in August of 2020 up until December of 2021. It was nonstop. People working, more people than we've seen in ever working in the industry. So it's been really productive. And through that time, we have been looking at how we can help address a lot of the things that you guys have been sharing stories about right now. And that's what we're going to keep moving forward from there.
Of course. One more question. Well, I'm sure there'll be more questions, but one more question on the vetting process. What are the costs associated with becoming a member?
The costs associated are not that great. We have membership dues. Obviously, once you become a member, there's a $100 initiation fee. Now, to become a permit, we do ask everyone to take a permit orientation course, which I'm going to say is $100, but it's an online course. It used to be a 2-day in-person course, but due to the pandemic, we have quickly shifted to online. We have, it's about 7 hours. It doesn't have to be done all at once, but it is, especially for someone who is newer to the industry, it goes through a lot of various paperwork, just even simple things like how to fill out a deal memo, which is your starting paperwork. That's the initial cost. And then coming into membership, we, like I said, have annual dues, and we have $350 initiation fee.
Awesome. I was only asking about cost because sometimes that is a barrier for people for entry in various organizations. So I was just curious, not having any knowledge of what that consists of. So Peggy, if you don't mind sharing what the process is for onboarding new professionals in NABET.
Thank you, Lisa. Michelle, I too am very excited to be part of this panel, especially because my background is hair. I have always been driven to try and find out more about all hair textures, to be honest. So I'm excited to be here with NABET 700. We mirror we are the two unions, 873 and NABET 700M. We have the same 14 departments, and to come in is a little bit different, although we are the largest component on any given set. The crew that we put out on the floor is part of these two unions in Toronto, the two local unions that create the largest part of the labor force. For the hair department, as Angela mentioned, you have to have an Ontario hair license. You have to have 3 to 5 years in a hair salon. You have to perform this NABET etiquette, it's called. It's an etiquette course, as Angela stated, that we both run, just to make sure that people that are coming in that might not have an idea of the industry, we kind of lay out some groundwork about how to do things when you're on set. It's more for them to actually also be sort of just have an idea, a better idea, because sometimes if you don't know anything about this industry, but you're curious about it, then it's a great way to sort of learn. It's $100 fee as well with us for your permittee application. So for hair, you have to have an Ontario hair license, 3 to 5 years in a salon. You have to have your NABET etiquette certificate, which costs $100. We run one a month through Zoom as well, and your permit application form. Your permit application form states who you are. It gives us an updated resume. It just tells us a little bit about who you are and how, what you're applying in what department. The makeup department is similar. You come in, a lot of students from CMU, which we happen to be right beside, our office is right beside CMU. So they apply as a permit in the same process. They have to have some sort of formal schooling. They do their NABET etiquette. They fill out their permittee application. And the makeup department has a permittee panel where they look at permittees. And this is just to talk with the people coming in to give them even more understanding of the positions that they might be overseeing while working on the floor at NABET 700M. It's the same cost associated. With all 14 departments at NABET, we ask that anyone applying has 40 days in film or television. That is to gain knowledge just for the person that's coming in, as well as the members that we have, that sometimes we can't supply another member. We have to supply what we call a permittee, which is groundwork to become a member with the organization. And so it's just to help them. You can gain that experience through commercial work, print work, any kind of webisode work, non-union work, anything that enables you to get those 40 days. We are currently trying to figure out how we can sort of cover some of the training. We do quite a bit of extensive training at the union as well. That
was actually my next question. So it's clear that both organizations have a very thought out process for vetting.
Yes.
They need to have training, professional experience to varying levels for both positions, hair and makeup. Do either of your organizations offer training for them to upskill or gain more experience in working with Black hair, or for the makeup artists in skin tones? Is that incorporated into any training programs or upskilling programs that your unions have? If your union offers training at all.
We offer it extensively, as I said. We've set up some training with Cadman, which is a barbershop here in Toronto. I actually took training with them before I took office. I've been a president for a short time as well. I was elected and then Angela was elected, so we both become presidents very close to each other. So Cadman is a barbershop here that I took some training with to try and learn more about the fine art of barbering. Those on this call might agree with me that barbering in itself is an art of its own. So we try to run.
And I presume barbering Black hair, I presume.
Yes, all hair types. So yes. And so we're just trying to run something to make our members, and we offer to our permittees as well, more familiar with establishing better skills that way. We've also run a class, but this is prior to COVID, with Jasma, which is a Black hair salon here in Toronto. It was very successful. It was well attended. We wanted to run another one. Then we went into COVID. We've tried to run some online courses. Of course, I feel with hair, it's a bit different. We like to have it in our texture, and I only speak that way because I'm a hairdresser. But we're currently going to be speaking to Jasma again, and we're also going to be speaking with Juju, which is Janet Jackson's salon. She recently did a show for us last year. We hired her on a TV series we did because we need somebody specialized to do that kind of hair. I spoke with her on the phone, and we had a really great experience, and she does teaching at her salon. TK, I'm really excited to talk to you about what you could offer as well, because the membership is really excited about starting, just continuing just sort of training on that whole thing. I know I can feel what everybody's saying, because I've been that person on that other side where that actor has sat in my chair and we've had to go through it. My process is different than others, but I always want to make sure, because I can't say being on camera, the beginning of your day starts with hair and makeup. And if you can't be comfortable in that seat, how are you going to get through your day? How are you going to step in front of a camera, do lines, and be happy? So for me and for many of the hair and makeup artists I've worked with through my years, our goal is to make certain that those actors are comfortable. We start their day the way that it should be started. And I'm excited about just facilitating training for members and our permittees on how to continue to give them the knowledge they need to keep facilitating more growth in that area.
And speaking of knowledge and more education and great education, I'm excited to reintroduce TK and hear from her about her Textured Hair EDU. What is Textured Hair EDU? What are you doing with that program? Can you explain a little bit about your venture?
Thank you so much. So I just have to acknowledge how heavy this portion of the event has been. Even just listening to Khadijah's story and then the two amazing members in the film and entertainment industry was a lot to absorb. So I just had to just take a moment for that, because this is exactly why we're here and having this conversation. And Peggy, I would love to collaborate. We can totally make it happen. So Textured Hair EDU is taking on a huge challenge, because currently we are going after the beauty industry and its lack of representation. It does not represent the 60% of the world diversity that exists. 60% meaning that there's 60% of people in the world with curly and afro textures, with different melanated skin tones, and even just scaling back the curriculum, how Eurocentric it is, and non-inclusive. So that's basically the role that we're taking on, and it's very heavy, and it's very taxing, because me personally, I work in the salon behind the chair, and I'm only one human being. However, as it was lovely put in my introduction by Lisa, the frustration alone has been enough to catapult me into this direction. And I'm doing whatever is in my power to make a change in this world. And it already has made a change in the world, because for the one class that we've offered, as well as the series of free education and live conversations with different beauty professionals in the natural hair care world, it's already changed lives for hairstylists and others that want to learn more about texture. I've had hairstylists come to me saying that they've never touched Afro hair, but with my education, they were able to do successfully haircuts and even color services. So even that alone, like coloring textured hair is very, very different than other textures. And people, unfortunately, have been going out into the world getting butchered hair services and haircuts because people aren't adequately prepared. And yes, it's important to address and talk about these things. However, I was finding that people were just putting up a black square and acknowledging it. Acknowledging is great, but the work has to be done, especially in Canada. Like, the curriculum is outdated that beauty professionals have to take. And it's amazing that for Peggy and Angela, you do have a license requirement, but unfortunately the licensing is not equipping hairstylists to work with every hair type.
And that was my next question. Are you looking to get your textured hair EDU into the licensing programs? Because from my diving into this topic way before this panel and trying to find the root problem, as we quickly see with a lot of racial injustices, it's systemic, because IATSE and NABED and other organizations are doing their due diligence. They're hiring people who are following protocol and getting their licenses. But then we have to look at, okay, what are the requirements for licensing? And if the requirements for licensing don't include Black hair, then we need to dig into that. So I love that your program is involved in that. So are you looking to get it as part of a requirement for Ontario licensed professionals, hair professionals?
Yes, in Ontario, but then the rest of Canada and abroad. So exactly what you're saying is what I'm trying to do, because there's nothing that can really change until the curriculum's updated. Yes, it includes, you know, the basics of understanding sanitation and different like hair services, but what's included in Black hair care is mainly relaxers. And although there's a lot of people that still relax their hair, there's a whole community of people that don't, and where their hair naturally curly and Afro textured, but the current curriculum that's required doesn't include that. And it's to break down what the curriculum's based on. When you go to hair school, depending on whatever prospective hair school you go to, they offer their own learning and training, but then the colleges and trades has their own requirement as well that you have to learn in order to complete your licensing. You can't complete it with this prospective hair school curriculum itself. You need to have the knowledge from the trades. And until that's updated, hair schools are able to teach whatever they want at the end of the day. Because when I went to the Aveda Institute, we had more introductory conversations about texture. We were in our kit, we were only given straight mannequins. There are curly and Afro mannequins that exist, but they thought it was more important to give us all straight mannequins and then perm one of them to make the hair curly, which is like not a representation of the variety of curls that are out there. So what's unfortunately happening is people, they think that the curriculum is enough. And until they go to a salon and they get their hair services butchered, or even, yes, the client's perspective, kind of like why I resonate with Khadijah's story, like your perspective is valuable, but even for the stylists on my platform, the anxiety that they feel because they weren't prepared to work with that texture of hair. Yeah. That's where the systemic racism comes, and where the continued barriers come up when they're forced to have to work with a hair type that they weren't trained in beauty school, because the ministry doesn't see the value. That's 100%. What I'm fighting.
Woo! This panel is on fire, and we have two panelists who I haven't introduced yet, who I want to bring into this conversation. Trust me, we will get. We still will have time to incorporate everybody in one. I thank you for all your perspectives, because as we've mentioned, it's an ecosystem. It takes all of these parts and all of these different roles in the industry to get where we want to go. So moving on to, I'd like to formally invite Sharon Lewis. Thank you for your patience, and Samantha Kane. Sharon Lewis is a Canadian Screen Award winning director and showrunner. She is well known for her Afrofuturist sci-fi feature film Brown Girl Begins, as well as her award-winning feature documentaries, which focus on the BIPOC LGBTQI+ communities, Disruptor, Conductor, and With Wonder. Samantha Kane is a Jamaican-Canadian award-winning independent film and television creative producer, advocate, mentor, and alumna of the CFC's Cineplex Entertainment Producers Lab program. She is the founder and CEO of Impact, the Independent Media Producers Association of Creative Talent, which is a national member-based nonprofit organization created to combat systemic and anti-Black racism. I have specific questions for the two of you, but I would love to hear if you wanted to chime in on any of the aforementioned conversations, or I could go directly to the questions I have specifically for you.
Well, I'm going to jump in here, Sharon. Sorry.
I'll go right after you.
I apologize for the long wait.
Yeah, I've been sitting quiet and I've been wanting to jump in since Khadija spoke. I was like, but
you should have put up your hand. I would have brought you in, girl.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Lisa Michelle, for just inviting me to this panel. The discussions, again, like TK said, I've been sitting here trying to, control my emotions. Because this is such a, this is a hard-hitting topic discussion. It should have been something that we've been talking about for years, not just right now. And I understand how important it is to have these conversations now. I just wish it didn't take a racial reckoning and a pandemic for people to actually listen. So that being said, I promise not to take it to church here. I promise, but I'm
do whatever thou wilt.
I'm able to, but here we go. So to go along with what Khadija and TK were saying, and I have to say, Peggy and Angela, thank you both for being here too, because I think it's extremely important that the unions are here. I wish there were more on this panel today, but it's coming. We're slowly making change. And it's this conversation around Black hair, especially, I mean, I have sat in a chair where the hairstylist and makeup person did not know the makeup for my tone, especially my skin tone, or the fact that I too have 4C curly hair, and my curls are not extremely wiry. They're a little kinky, but they're not as tight. Do you know what I mean? These are things and conversations I wish I could have had when I started my performing career. I too had to bring my own makeup, my own hair, products, everything. And I remember sitting in on one production where I literally did my hair myself, and she just stood behind me. And I'm like, I think in my head, I'm like, how am I not getting your paycheck right now? Because I'm literally doing this myself.
And you know what the frustrating part of that is? Because I think every Black performer has done their hair themselves once, twice, or a million times. What frustrates me most about that is at the end, when the credits roll and it says hair, it's going to have that hair person's name. And why that's a problem is because now people watching that film think, oh, well, they've done Samantha Kane's hair, so they can do what they didn't, because Samantha Kane did Samantha Kane's hair.
And also, can I just jump in and say this? Also, that actor is there doing their own hair without the privilege that the white actor gets, which is to run lines, prep for their role, get involved, have a discussion with the director. Do you know what I mean? Do all of those things that they're hired to do. So the inequity starts immediately, because then you get onto set. And also, I'm sure all of you, and we've all done this, woke up 2 hours earlier to get your hair prepped to get to the hair person. So you've now spent 2 hours on hair in the morning, as opposed to on your job as an actor. And then on my side as a director, I'm receiving that. right? So two actors come to set, one bouncy and ready to go, and the other who's just been traumatized or exhausted because they've had to spend so much time on their hair. So it starts even from that. And I just want to jump in and say this, and Samantha, and then I'll go back to you. I just want to say,
please, Sharon, do.
As important as it is for white stylists to get training on how to do black hair, what has to be understood is that there is a legacy of systemic racism. So from the time a black performer walks on that set and a white stylist goes, but I know how to do it, you have to understand that we've had years of trauma. So for us to trust that you actually really know how to do it is really tough, because I've had my hair burnt. I'm sure we all have had our hair burnt. I've had my lips drawn smaller. I've looked yellow, like all kinds of things, right? So there's a legacy. So it's important, yes, that we train white stylists so that they know how to do diverse hair. But it is an incredible difference when you walk on a set and you have a black hairstylist. There's a whole understanding and language and culture that goes on, not just how to do hair, but like how to do wigs, how to do pieces, how to so that you're not styling it yourself and coming with your own ideas. And for me as a director, I want to turn to that stylist and go, okay, she's like, hip, blah, blah, urban, Atlanta, da, da, da. What do we got? So that stylist is saying to me, oh yeah, girl, we got this, and this. We can't do that because that hairpiece, you've got a wet scene and that hairpiece is going to go like this, or, we're going to go in the rain with this. So we're going to do that. I don't get that privilege, right? If I'm not working with the head of the department, I don't get to design with that head of department. And that again translates. So then that actor's going out there and we're like, you're going to have one look for the whole time, and it's usually braids in a ponytail. You know what I'm saying?
Because it's safe, because you can't mess it up.
Right?
That's the MO. Yeah.
And in wet, we can sort of braid it back up again, like all of that stuff. So when we're talking about equity, which is at the core of all of this, the inequity comes in that you don't get to do your craft. And then I don't get to do my craft with you. And then I will just say this as well. You also don't get hired. I was on an episodic, and I specifically asked for diverse background. And when I showed up, specifically for this scene, and when I showed up, there was no black women. And I asked the second AD what was going on. And no lie, he said, the hair person said that black women come with weaves and it's too much work. So they sent home the black women that came for the background work.
Wow.
You understand? That is deep. So the inequity that we experience is not just about the actor showing up on set. You're not even getting to get to set. Because all of that's happening before that.
That's right. And it absolutely does begin from jump, because even I worked on a project just recently that was outside of Canada, and it was a Canadian crew that was hired to go there. And within that Canadian crew, not one black hairstylist or black makeup artist. So I sent everything ahead of time I talked to my agent, and you're right, Lisa Michelle, it does begin with your agent. So if actors out there, if you have a great relationship with your agent, fantastic. If you do not, build it and start that relationship, because your agent
make them understand.
But it's also educating your agents, right? Because they also
that is correct. Also, it's here's the thing: it's broad education all around, and it's one that we no longer want to be doing. It's 2022. Yeah. I can't believe this discussion is around re-educating. First of all, educating and then re-educating as well. This is ridiculous. This is hair.
But it also really speaks to the sexism in the industry, where hair and makeup is never taken as seriously as the camera department.
Well, yeah, I've heard that from hair and makeup professionals in general. In general, they don't feel respected on set.
We need 5 minutes for hair and makeup, and everybody rolls their eyes. Camera needs 45 minutes to go and relight, and it's cool. So
thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon.
Very sexist attitude towards hair and makeup, and then it continues on with that. Then you incorporate racism in that, because Also, Lisa Michelle, you started with saying, I know it sounds, these aren't your words, but it was sort of like, I know it sounds like it's just hair and makeup, right? Because we always feel like we have to explain.
It's because it sounds trivial, but it's
like it's
a
not.
picture. We're in the picture.
Right? We're talking about a whole
Here's
character.
the thing. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but until people understand that our identity as Black people are hugely wrapped up in our hair, they will not understand the value of what we do.
So I wanna echo.
And sorry, I'll just say this, Peggy. And when you go to your agent, it never occurs to them to negotiate or to find out who hair and makeup is, because they've mostly dealt with their white clients and they haven't had to do that. So I was actually involved where an actor hair was burnt off. I said, you need to call your agent. Of course, she doesn't want to, because we all know, like you said, Lisa Michelle, if you're the only Black actor on that set, we all know who's making the complaint, right? And then you're afraid the producer's not going to hire you again, or the director. And called their agent, and their agent was like, oh yeah, okay, but what's the big deal? It's hair and makeup. And that is the issue, is that even when you're negotiating that contract, find out if they have a DP who knows how to light Black skin, and whether or not they have a hair and makeup person who knows how to style you.
This isn't necessarily for film and TV, but I have a theater contract coming up where I just negotiated, as part of my deal memo, the opportunity to be able to consult with hair and makeup before any looks are confirmed, and that's something that I plan on bringing into my next film or TV deal memo as well, because the conversation has to start in those places.
Good for you.
It has to start from the very beginning. Good for you. Good for you. Samantha, I know you're a performer as well, but if you can speak to this as a producer, for those who may not know how it works, because I'm very new to producing, even I don't really know how it works. How are hair and makeup artists hired for a production? Who's doing that hiring? How involved are you able to get as a producer, and Sharon as well, because I know you're a producer as well. How involved are you able to get in the hiring of your stylist and makeup artist when you are producing the project?
Well, I think it depends on, obviously, who you are, who the producer is, what the production company is, and what your budget is. With me personally, I'm only going to speak for myself. I tend to get highly involved with the production manager and make sure that, especially the majority of the stories that I produce, I also produce theater. Khadija, by the way, so good for you. I've had those talks, so good for you. I make sure that I am extremely involved in who's doing hair, how experienced are they, who is doing makeup. I try to have conversations with these people as well. If you're on a bigger budget and you're a huge, it's a little bit harder to do as a producer if you're doing so many other things. But I would say have a great relationship with your production manager, because if you two can have that relationship, then I'm sure Sharon can speak to this too, then you will see that you're able to have to better know your crew as well. You don't want to be so far removed that you're like, okay, yeah, who is that? Doesn't matter, and I tend to be involved in every single aspect. That's just me. So because I'm using my lived experiences. I'm like, as a performer, what did I need from a producer? That's one of the main reasons I became a producer, because it starts from that person. And a lot of the time, I was on sets where the producers just didn't care. And how do you not care? It doesn't matter, like Khadija said, if you're 10 or 15 or number 1 on that call sheet. You're important as a performer. You are absolutely important, or your production will be crap. I just had to. Yes, people are.
I'm loving this conversation, and I want to have it for 45 hours, but we don't unfortunately have that time. So I'm going to pull the camera back now, even though we could always see everybody. But now let's pretend we're pulling back. Everyone's in on the conversation, and I want to pose this question to everyone, because I think we've laid out a good foundation of what the problem is, how often it's happening, why it's an urgent need to change it and fix it. I'd love for some of you to share, perhaps the performers could share first, but anyone can really contribute to this, when it went right. Because as I said in the beginning, I've had some fantastic experiences with hairstylists and makeup artists many times. I'll shout out the Murdoch Mystery crew. Everybody who works on Murdoch Mysteries is killer. Like, my hair was in afro, so I had to take it out of braids. And I'll tell you, the conversation I had beforehand, I was like, can I please have braids? They're like, no. I'm like, can I please have braids? No. I was like, all right. And I was really nervous because, I got a fro, and I was like, here we go. And they really took care of me. My hair was going to get wet. I was getting drowned. And the stylist was like, well, we have to put like a leave-in conditioner so that your hair is protected when we go underwater. I could have kissed her. I was like, I love that you thought about this. So what helped me with that in that situation, what went right was that we had a lot of conversations before I got there about how I needed to show up with my hair. So I was prepared. I asked her outright, do you work with afro hair? Like, I know that's hard for some people to do, to just be as outspoken, but like you said, Khadija, I've been burned too many times where like, I'm just going to ask beforehand now, like, have you worked with afro hair? Because if not, I am not taking the braids out. I don't care what year this is supposed to be in. And she spoke with confidence. So I was like, all right, here we go. So what helped me before was a conversation beforehand, preparation, and her being truthful about her experience and truly taking care of my hair in the different scenarios. So when it went right for you, I would love to hear what made it go right so we can add more of these into our best practices going to set.
Well, I work with Champlain Media, and I'm calling them out because I really give them kudos. I was hired to do a TV movie, and I cast both of the lead was Black woman. And I was like, do you have a stylist who's dealt with Black hair before? And they were like, we have a great style team, blah, blah, blah. Met with them. They're like, oh yeah, no, we've done Black hair, blah, 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 all that, right? And so I said, okay, but you've done braids. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've taken hair that's already in braids and braided it. That's not dealing with Black hair. Mm-hmm. That's not dealing with it. So anyway, I said, it's really important that we get a stylist who knows how to deal with her hair. And so they had already hired a team, and they hired another team. They hired another hair and makeup team, and which was fantastic. It was
like, in addition to the hair and makeup team they had already, they hired
teams. Okay. So there were two teams. Now it was a bit crunchy, a little bit between those two teams, because you can imagine trying to negotiate that. And I did have to deal with one person saying to me, you're making it about race. And I was like, it's so interesting, because if the camera guy was shooting the ground and I said, we need to replace that camera person, he'd be like, oh yeah, clearly they're shooting the ground. But if this hair person does not know how to do their hair, how's that any different than the camera person shooting the ground? We have to find somebody who knows how to do what they're hired to do. So I often get that response that it's about race, and I always answer back with, it's about skill. It's about skill level. So if because I feel that they sometimes try to make it about a race thing, and so that went really well. Although it's not perfect, it went really well, and it also gave an emerging team the hours that they needed to work on set to hopefully become keys.
I love that.
Head of the department.
I'm going to jump in. Sorry, Khadija, really quickly here to something that Sharon said. It absolutely is about race. And if they say, well, you're making it about race, say, you damn right I am.
I was going to say that as well. It
is. No, it's not about race. And the reason I say it's not about race is because we're not just hiring somebody who's Black. We're hiring somebody who is talented and skilled, and they're not being recognized. And so that's why I say that, because it's not an affirmative action hire. Not that I'm against affirmative action. It's about hiring somebody who's skilled. And the way that I say that it's about race, and that we are combating systemic racism, which is why there's nobody there. Do you know what I mean? But we're not hiring somebody. And that's my worry, is that this idea that, we're just hiring somebody because they're Black. We're hiring them because it's a skill.
No, I was going to say, to meet in the middle there, and I'm so glad you said that, to meet in the middle, yes, it is about race, and then have the conversation as to why it is and why it's important that they acknowledge that. Because if we say, I've heard so many times working through the work that I do with Impact, oh, Samantha, you're making it about race. I have to educate them. I have to re-educate them and say, yes, it is about race. And this is why it's about race. Because again, the difference between affirmative action and something you should be doing 100% is this. And this is the reason. So there's a meet in the middle there.
Yes, agreed. And we shouldn't ignore that we're combating systemic racism.
That's right.
Right. That's why we're having this conversation. Yeah.
Can I say something on Sharon's on what Sharon just said about having this conversation?
Yes, of course.
And what I want to say about what's going right is this: when you start having these conversations, that's what I see has been really going right. Because when you think you're the only one that is having these issues, there's fear involved in that. You don't want to speak up. You don't want to be the only one because you think you're the only one. But when you start to know that other people are having the exact same issues as you are, now you start, there's safety in numbers. There's more people. There's like, wait a minute, this is more than just me. And then you have these kinds of conversations. And when you have these kinds of conversations, people start to pay attention. And when people start to pay attention, change is affected.
That's right. I'd love to hear from Khadija because I know she has a hard stop. I have a panel full of vibrant working folks, so I want to get your thoughts in before we fully wrap up.
Thank you, Lisa Michelle. I'm very eager to listen to what everyone has to say about this topic as well. I just wanted to add that I do have quite a few positive experiences that have made me feel like we are moving in the right direction as far as this conversation goes. The first experience I can speak of was I was on set for Grand Army, and key makeup on that show was a Black woman, and I nearly cried when she started greasing my scalp in the processing. It was unbelievable. It was the first time that I felt someone just like go in there and start put like with deep parts and all of the right products, and I felt beautiful by the time I walked out of processing, which was a very unique experience and one that I hope to see, for every time that I walk out, one that I hope to feel every time I walk out of processing. The other great experience that I have that came out of a really beneficial conversation was when I was cast in Slow Pitch. The director on that show and one of the creators, Jay Stevens, took me out for nachos and asked me what I needed to feel safe on their set coming onto that production.
Wow.
And I was very frank with them about my needs as a Black woman in that space, and stepping in front of their camera as a white non-binary individual. And that conversation was the start of a beautiful friendship and working relationship, because Jay ended up working on Defund as well. And the insight that they had and the insight that type of insight is what I feel is necessary to creating the shift that we're all looking for.
So having conversations, being asked outright what you need. Sharon stating that, a production willing to bring on another team to fit equity into the budget. What a novel idea. It's great. And Peggy and Angela, and I'd love to hear from, sorry, I keep grouping you together. You're two separate people from two separate organizations. Dialing about. Let me ask Angela first then. In closing, because like I said, I want to leave on a hopeful note, because we are seeing improvements, and I'd love this to be solution oriented. What is your organization, or what has your organization, IATSE, done or is doing or planning to do to address these needs? As succinct as you can be, so that I can give both Peggy and TK a chance to speak about their organization's positive strides as well.
We have definitely upped our game in training, because we want to not just train, as you said, white makeup artists and hairdressers to learn how to do textured hair, but also leveling the playing field so that everyone has an ability to train, so that the Black hairstylist has the ability to have wig training and period training and things that not everyone has had the ability to do. So we want to be able to have rotating monthly courses that are offered here at the union office, because we do a lot of training. We have an amazing woman by the name of Etheline Joseph. I am going to call her out. She is she is my rock when it comes to all of this stuff. She is fantastic. She is just, she is a train, and she just keeps moving forward. We have been working with the CMU in terms of how are we going to be able to facilitate their graduates to work with us. We want to, as a union, we have legal obligations to our membership. So how are we going to work and have the ability to fulfill that, but also bring new and talented people into the industry and eventually gain membership, because having a union represent you is one of the best ways that you will always have a voice. You have the benefits, you have the wage scale, you have the credits that you're going to need moving forward. And I know that whatever union it is, having that power behind you is definitely uplifting to all.
100%. I would agree for performers and all industry professionals. I'm such a unionist for that very reason. Like, you need the strength. I see ACTRA as a performer almost as not free because we pay dues, but as affordable legal representation as I go along, and a reporting body and someone who can hold the other players in the industry accountable when things like this occur. So Peggy, I'd love to hear from you as well about what NABET has done, is doing, plans to do to bring equity for all performers on set.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to try and share some information as well, because Angela and I do echo each other a lot, because we are trying to do the same thing, even though we're different unions. I can't stress enough. I've heard the stories. And again, because I come from that world, TK, we got to talk after this, because it comes from the schools. There's no training. I was that person who fought with the director of my private beauty school. Why aren't we doing textured hair? I learned how to do it, which is why I was successful with it on set. But I want to share information. Talk to your agents, like you've been hearing. It's very, very important. What I know Angela's members and ours do. Etheline Joseph, I trained with her. I'm aging myself now, but I wasn't even out of school and I was training with Eth. I love Eth. She's one of the best in Toronto. So what you should do as a performer, right? If there's anyone watching this as a performer, talk to your agent, right? And make sure that you're discussing it. What our members, and I'm sure Angela's do in hair and makeup, we reach out to the actors. We speak to them about what it is that they require. What product do they need? What special this, that, or the others. Even if you're, as we've mentioned, 25 on the call sheet or on the actors list, then make yourself available to whoever that head of department is. Reach out. It's a digital age. Text them, email them, tell them, I am a Black woman who has been cast in this. Do you have experience with Afro hair? No one will be offended. Trust me. We all want to learn, want to get better. So the only way to do it is communication. Mm-hmm. And I know it on both sides. I know all the members that are with 873. I've worked with a lot of them. We all feel that way, whether we're whatever it is, but reach out and speak to them, because as a hairdresser or a makeup artist that's hired, we go to the producer, we tell them this is what we need. We need this product. We need this, because we've reached out to the actor to find out what their specialized stuff is. And just make sure you're communicating with everyone. I think that's what's changing, and it's going to continue to change. As Angela said, this conversation is happening. Sadly, it's 2022 and it's still happening. I was in hairdressing school a really long time ago, but I'm here and I'm so happy. And I want to help you change this, TK, in schools, because they don't teach how to do this hair, and it's ridiculous. Why is it I've worked with some really formidable Black hairdressers that can do Caucasian, I call it Caucasian hair, but I mean different textured hair, straight hair, wavy hair, but nobody knows how to do curly or kinky hair. It's ridiculous. It's time for it to change. NABET 700 is committed to teaching, to making sure we not only teach the people that are in our union, whether it's members or permits, we've also cast a wide net. We've built relationships with BIPOC type industries in Toronto to figure out where are all these Black hair and makeup artists that want to be part of our industry. I walk them through panels myself, just us and them, to break down those systematic barriers, because it exists. I know, I was there. I've sat in my chair while the actor's in the makeup chair, and I can see things going terribly wrong and my heart breaking and going, how am I going to help fix this? So I do totally get it. And I am so committed to wanting to figure out what the change is. So sitting where I am now, I'm committed to making sure we're casting nets. My hair and makeup VP are also committed to it. We've cast our nets to find people that we can bring into the organization to help diversify and establish that cultural need that is absolutely needing to be present in the film industry, period, end story, and to help train the people that are here that want to learn how to do it. So we are committed to it. We're going to keep doing it. We're not just like Angela. We have conversations, her and I. We might be separate unions. We might call each other competitors, but we are committed to the same goals because we sit on these panels together. And I know where Angela sits. I know I've spoken to her, and I know she feels the same way I do. And we're committed to making sure we figure out a way to make sure that when actors sit in their chairs, they're going to create that comfort in all capacities, that no matter who's doing it, they're comfortable doing it, and the cultural cultural differences that is required. We're about action, both Angela and I. It's not just lip service. We're here to make sure that the goals that we've all talked about today are going to get seen through. Period.
We appreciate that very much. I love that you, both Peggy and TK, are going to connect after this. If nothing else comes from this immediate conversation, I'm happy that that's happening, because TK is the bomb. Like, side end, I get my hair done when it's curly at the salon that she works out of, and I happened to be there when TK was being featured by another news outlet who came in to talk to her. And I was getting my hair done, but I couldn't keep my hair straight because I was just like, who are you after this? So I'm so glad you were able to join us. So briefly, because I know we're wrapping up, I'd love to still hear from Samantha and TK about positive experiences so we can throw some more best practices into the pot, and then we will close.
It's so hard to contain my excitement, you guys. This is everything. And Peggy, I left my number for you. Please call me after this class or event. I just want to thank you guys so much for thinking of me to be a part of this. This is magical. I thank you, Angela and Peggy, for being a part of this, because you're seeing firsthand what needs to be done and you want to eagerly change it. And I'm here for it. Thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity. And I can't wait to hear the other panelists. And Samantha and Sharon, you guys are on point. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Samantha.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you as well. And it's so great to have the unions here. Angela and Peggy, wonderful. Sharon, I could listen to you all day. So I love hearing you. And I love your stuff in the background. It looks fantastic, your paintings. And TK, lovely to meet you. Lisa, Michelle, always, always, always.
Same.
So me for some things that are working and some best practices. Yes, like I said, I recently put back on my performer hat and had an opportunity to travel outside of Canada with the Canadian crew, working in front of the camera, which was really great. Sometimes you got to exercise that muscle again. And I must say there are a few things that did go well with the makeup artist, with my skin tone, and we were able to have that discussion prior to. For my hair, honestly, because I knew where I was going and the fact that the hairstylist may not be that familiar. I didn't get a chance to speak with her before going. I just put a weave in. It was quite simple, easy. And I'm like, if you know how to do straight weave, no problem, because my hair is colored and I didn't want it to, anybody to fry it, don't touch it, And another thing too, with working with Black women hair, honestly, this is something my grandmother said, and I see it every day. And I've experienced it myself. If someone is working on your hair and they're not happy, it will go into our hair. And you will, I don't know how else to explain that. The Black women on the panel know what I'm talking about.
Well, the kinks in my hair explained it in a nice 2.5 hour play.
Exactly. There's a short film called Hair Love. Watch that. Like, it's just, it's truth speaking truth. And I'm so very happy that we have panels like this. And I'm hoping that, Fabienne Colès, I hope you do this with the Montreal Black Film Festival and ACTRA Montreal, because Quebec really does need panels like this, especially the Black and Francophone creators there and actors there. They need this as well. The unions in Quebec need to hear this and be a part of these sort of panels as well. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. The reason panels like this can happen is because of people like you who are willing to show up and speak on it. It's not easy for any of us in any of our positions to do this. This conversation has been going on in silos for decades, but it has to come to the forefront so that change can be made. And I realize that each and every person here is sticking their neck out a little bit to speak on what is going out. So I appreciate Toronto Black Film Festival for giving us the platform to do this. Thank you, ACTRA Toronto, for asking me to do this, because they know I'm very passionate about it. And it took everything in me as a moderator to not get emotional, because I've been very emotional about it. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, TK. Thank you, Khadija, who has to leave because we had such an amazing panel of working folks who had to go. I also want to remind you that this is a Toronto Black Film Festival event, so don't forget to get your all access pass at torontoblackfilm.com. Steering it back to the conversation, any performers watching this, if you're an ACTRA member and you're on set, use your agent, use the union. If you don't trust your agent, use the union. Go to them, even if it's just to let them know what's happening and you want to remain anonymous. So maybe you don't want to report exactly what's happening for all the aforementioned reasons that you are afraid it's going to come back to you. They still need to know that it's happening, because what happens when we get to bargaining tables and things like that, when it's not documented and not reported, it gets said as, it sounds just like hearsay. And then they don't believe it's really happening. So panels like this are important. You calling it in, even if you tell ACTRA, and they work with performers. It's a performers union. They know very clearly if you say, I'm just telling you this to tell you, but don't use my name, they won't use your name. But it's important for it to be documented and for them to know. So use your unions, use the people around you who are your teammates in all of this. Thank you all for being our teammates on this. Once again, I'm Lisa Michelle, and we will see you all on the red carpet, hopefully in real life one day, in person, in the flesh. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.